Hello, everybody. This speech is my first speech, and the title is Why Public Speaking is So Hard for Me. Begin with my name. My English name is Percy, and that's the name I chose for myself a long time ago. Why Percy? If you think I'm a big fan of Thomas train and I love that chubby train called Percy, you're completely wrong. Because the real reason is I chose my Chinese first name. When you translate its meaning into English, that means perseverance. That's why. And my father, who is the one who chose that Chinese name for me, and he used to tell me many times when I was little, you don't need to become the best among all the people, but everything you do, you want to do it as best as you can, and you don't give up very easily. So my father is turning 72 years old this year, and I think I'm still benefiting from what he told me about the meaning of my name long time ago, every day. So that's about my name. My childhood, I was born in a big city in northern China, but pretty soon I was brought back to an isolated, remote area called the Qing Mountains when I was only a couple of weeks old. And at that time, my parents, they worked for a military factory which manufactured radar for the army. During those years, China and the Soviet Union, they had a very tense relationships. So China decided to hide dozens of its military factories and maybe a couple of 100,000 military people into either desert or big mountains. And Qing Mountains is in the central China mainland with about the same magnitude of Rocky Mountains here in North America. So you can imagine my childhood, I didn't get too much chance to communicate with other people other than my family members, because I was living in that isolated military town in the middle of nowhere. And culture. I'm going to talk about a little bit about my mother country's culture. In China, in its culture, deep in the root, there is this thing called Confucianism, which advocates obedience to authorities. In other words, you're not encouraged to have your own personal thinking or ideas. So one of the famous teaching in this philosophy is let the king be a king, let the minister be a minister, the father be a father, son be a son. So that means you don't need to speak up very often to express your ideas. You just need to follow people who are either senior in ranking or senior in age, and you should be just doing fine. So you can imagine I didn't get too much opportunity to speak up in the public under the umbrella of that culture. About my education. In China, in schools, they tend to teach you a lot of impractical things, like, for example, in math, they're going to teach you how to manually calculate cube root of 7 or log of 7. And you are supposed to work out the answer on a piece of paper in 3 minutes for those type of questions, right? But to be honest with you, you can just get the answer from a calculator in 3 seconds. But that's not the end of it. In math tests, in all the math exams, they're going to test you about stuff like those. But very likely in the real test, the one you are going to face is going to be maybe cube root of log 7. And then about my napping pattern. So I first time joined the Toastmaster club about 7 years ago in Fluor, Vancouver office. But believe it or not, my older daughter, she was born at about the same time. So I had to go through a long stretch of nighttime baby parenting. And usually the next day in the office, I became extremely sleepy after lunch. So in the Toastmaster sessions, I almost always fell into sleep. And eventually I told myself, okay, this is too tough. I cannot do it, so I quit. And later on, when my older daughter, she grew old enough and that phase of sleepy daytime was over, I developed an after lunch 20 minutes napping pattern I have to follow every day. So that further makes my going to the Toastmasters session thing more and more impossible. Stage phobia. So far I have talked about my childhood, my mother country's culture, my education, and my napping pattern for why public speaking is so hard for me. And from now on, I'm going to stop using excuses and tell you the true reason. I have to admit that I have stage phobia, and whenever I am standing in front of people and become the focus of the entire room, I will start to panic. My heart is pounding, my body is shaking, and I'm sweating like what I'm experiencing now. But they say when you are getting old, you want to do something which can thrill yourself every year. And I think I'm getting old, that's why I'm standing here. And to borrow the idea from Kelly's speech 2 weeks ago, I am now entering a dark cave of my life, and I will be facing a lot of fears and uncertainties. But hang on a second, what is the meaning of my name? Perseverance. Yes, I guess that's why I'm here.